So hello everybody, thanks for watching. I'm doing my first steps here in Riven, a sequel to Myst, and it's been released for PlayStation in flat and PlayStation VR2, and I'm just checking a bit for the picture and texture quality, because what I can say right now is the picture is not as sharp as it could be. Also the textures are not as sharp probably as they could be, but all in all, um, the lighting and the presentation itself, the art direction and the world itself is very, very interesting because it looks really nice. Like when you compare it to your usual um, third-party indie Quest ports, what immediately is visible is that texture quality and like the textures themselves, not necessarily resolution. That's another question, but the quality of the texturing and the quality of the lighting and the materials, shaders seems really, really nice. You don't see that very often. You see that in games like Star Wars, Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, or Red Matter, or such games. But I would liken the resolution and the overall feeling here really to games like Blood and Truth from PlayStation VR1. It is not the ultimate sharpness, but the feel and the texture of the world is pretty good. Yeah, it's really well created and well developed. The rust and the different kinds of specular texturing is really nice. The shadows are pretty low res when they're dynamic, very low res actually. But this feeling here is something that you probably only see in games like Kayak VR or something like that, or maybe Subnautica. Maybe there it's probably much sharper. But the baked lighting, and I guess it's baked here, everything, and the water effects and the horizon and the clouds, this is really a very, very fascinating remaster of an original CD-ROM game from the 90s. And to be able to walk in this world and have this level of detail here, like this could have been a texture, you know, but you really do have this rift here where the metal is a bit covered with the dirt and everything. And actually I've seen worse texturing, and I also seen worse resolution. I mean, like when you are close to this looks pretty great. This is not like the level of No Man's Sky has reached now or something, but it's not really so bad. It's not really a distraction, and it's not really a game stopper, you know, or showstopper. This is really really cool, actually. It has some problems with the VR thingy. When you watch the intro, you see that when you move your head in a strafing or parallaxing way, then some elements of the geometry are shifting, but that's not a biggie. And it is yeah, looking really, really nice. Texture sharpness, I don't know if this can be improved, because that would be a big job, because they would have really to upload a higher res texture pack for all those textures in the rocks and mountains here. I don't know if they do that. A slight increase in screen resolution or foveated rendering would be nice. Dynamic foveated rendering would be nice. But so far, I don't know what that is over there, but so far it actually looks epic, you know, for a AAA adventure game on PlayStation VR. This is really amazing. I just played the Twilight Zone game before I played this, and I will create a video for that game too. And let me tell you, this, for example, is night and day. This Twilight Zone game looks like an unpolished prototype or alpha version compared to this. Oh, wow, this looks really... This is a nice place. Yeah, as for the resolution, I'd say if you played Microsoft Flight Simulator recently, and maybe you know that I played it a lot, or I still play a lot, then the level of blurriness or sharpness is comparable here. So the ground textures are much sharper than in Microsoft Flight Simulator, and there's not a lot of aliasing actually. Like when you remember in No Man's Sky, you always had like this white fringe around trees or something in specific lighting conditions, and here there's nothing of that. You know, there's other stuff that, like for example, up there in the distance, there's a slight shift of the geometry when I'm rotating my head to the left and right. Could be LOD, I don't know, but all in all, I guess if you are sensitive to that, to the resolution, if it's too blurry for you, maybe you just play it in shorter bursts, because it can be straining on the eyes. The reprojection is also visible, but it's not really bothering me, personally. And it is quite immersive, I must say. It feels like a really developed world already, and it's like mysterious and intriguing and inviting to be explored. So yeah, I mean, okay, this is also not just baked, it's really a reflection here on that scarab, which already looks very good here. And some parts of the image seem to be sharper than the others. Like the text here is actually pretty good to read. It has very sharp letters, and this is something I must fix, because somehow I have to change the area for my PlayStation VR, but you can look through that, and it's cool. Very nice. Very, very nice. Yep. So for first impression, I can recommend this game, especially since it just got a price drop just right when it was released in the PlayStation Store. It's now $27.99, I think, was the last price I saw. And for that money, I definitely can recommend it for people who love adventure games or love to dig into a story and environment and solve puzzles and stuff. And this is really nice here. It reacts a bit on the touch here, and yeah, the metal texturing here is nice, really nice. So yeah, I think it's definitely not a problem, and it's definitely not a complete disaster. Of course it could be sharper, of course it could be more fluid, but so far there was no jittering and there's no stuttering, and I have not played Firmament, but if Firmament is even as good as this one, I might put it back on my list, because I was not thinking about purchasing it because of all the negative reviews. But maybe you can drop me something in the comments and tell me if this is comparable to Firmament, and I might get Firmament 2, because this is totally convincing here. I'm gonna play that. This is cool. See, I don't know what I'm doing here, because oh, it works. Wow, now look at that. Wow. Whew. Well, you don't see that every day in PlayStation VR2. Wow, the lighting and texturing here is really nice. This is, and the picture is really like, you know, I'm turning and nothing is stuttering. There's barely any aliasing here around the edges, really not distracting at all, but the whole scenery is wow. This looks nice, really nice. Yeah, so I'm gonna stop here before I sit here for the next few hours, and I'm gonna play this tomorrow, and yeah, this is really nice. Recommended, definitely.